Epstein Street.
Today is Epstein Street Part 5. Right?
Part 5, baby.
Okay, so it's Part 5. So what we left off at in Epstein Street Part 4 was that Lila and Roderick, they were interviewing Samira's mom, and we're calling her Teresa. So Teresa was telling Lila and Roderick that Samira did not actually die on Epstein Street. And so that confused Lila, that confused Roderick. She started asking her more questions. And so Teresa was like, well, Samira was with me when the tragic event took place on Epstein Street. But her best friend, Janessa, was fatally shot. And she thought that after that whole thing took place, the reason why Samira disappeared was because the depression of the loss of her close friend, her childhood friend, maybe led her to like end her life. But they never discovered a body. They never took her concern for her daughter seriously. Everybody just lumped Samira's disappearance with everything that took place on Epstein Street. And that's why she ended up in the little newspaper article with her mother saying, oh, she was my best friend. You know, I lost my partner in crime. All these, you know, heartwarming, heartfelt things that she said about her daughter.
How long ago did Epstein Street take place?
So the event on Epstein Street happened like 20 years prior to this. So after Roderick and Lila left Teresa's house, Lila was basically telling Roderick, like, we have to find a way to warn Samira. And the reason why they have to warn Samira is because the dark shadows from Epstein Street, they obviously know now, based on the last episode, that Samira is trying to help Lila and Roderick. And so that knowledge obviously is going to lead to everybody getting caught up. It's going to lead to Samira being hurt. And now they have to figure out why Samira is even associated with all those deaths on Epstein Street in the first place if she didn't die there. Like, why is she also stuck on Epstein Street?
Right. But she's not dead, or we don't know if she's dead?
We don't know yet. Like, we need to figure out what happened. We need to figure out if she did die, how she died, and why she's stuck on Epstein Street in purgatory with everybody else. And so they like print out all these pictures from Janessa's like old MySpace page, because this was 20 years ago. And they feel like doing that would create like the space to like summon Samira. You know, like she would feel her spirit being pulled. And so they do all of this and they sort of lounge around Lila's place, just waiting for something to happen, waiting for her to pop up. And her and Roderick are trying to figure out like what the next best thing to do would be, or like the questions to ask Samira when she finally does like appear. And I think that the main thing that they want to know is, how did you get stuck with that whole Epstein Street debacle, the tragedy? So then they get worried and they feel like maybe the dark shadows of Epstein Street end up getting to Samira before they were able to warn her.
Because I feel like they have more questions than they have answers, right?
Okay, so now they have more questions than they have answers. So they go back to motherfucking Epstein Street. So before we even get there, Roderick, it's been hours. Nothing happens. There's no Samira. Those pictures that they printed did not summon her. They didn't find anything else to like bring her back to them. And so Roderick basically says, I feel like we might have to go back to Epstein Street. I think that we may be a little too late. I think that we have to find a way to communicate with her from Epstein Street, because whatever is happening, those dark shadows probably honed in and she probably no longer has that freedom. You know, like your powers, you don't even know how to use them yet. They're probably not necessarily getting weaker, but the more they figure out what's going on, the more they figure out how much we've figured out, it sort of puts them ahead of the game, the dark shadows. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they decide to go back to Epstein Street. And even though Lila would love to help Samira, this person that she's becoming friends with, who she doesn't even know is alive or dead, or just like a soul floating around, she doesn't want to go back, but she knows that we got to do something. So they get ready. They don't really have a plan, like they never do. All they know is that they need to find a way to communicate with Samira. So Lila suggests to Roderick that they go back to the exact spot that Samira joined them on the walk that first time that they became acquainted with her. Yes, encountered her.
That's maybe their connection point.
Okay, so they have to like find a spot that's the strongest, obviously, because the further away they are from that area, I guess the weaker the connection gets.
Go back to the spot where they joined.
Mm-hmm.
But the girl's superpower is that she was able to join with Samira.
Maybe their connection is also because she went down that street because they both went to the same school, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that was, that's like her doorway or whatever, something like that.
Okay. So I feel it. So they go back to the spot
Where they joined.
where they met, like where they first encountered Samira. And they're sort of lingering there. Now, granted, even though Lila has agreed to do this, she's not really fond of like going deeper into Epstein Street. She just kind of wants to linger at that spot. She's like, I feel like this is good enough. This is strong enough. I'm not going directly into that diner. We're not going any further. We've already given them enough to like take advantage of us. And I still don't know how to use this ability that I have yet. So let's just hover here for a second. I know that we're going to beckon her. She's gonna come. We're gonna get her. So some time goes by, and of course the discomfort grows, and they're picking up on a lot of different energies, and it's not Samira's. Obviously she's more familiar with Samira's. And the last episode, I remember telling you guys that when Samira was in her room, she did see movement out the corner of her eyes, and that's exactly what she was experiencing now. Like the longer they're there, the longer she starts to pick up on movement around her, and she can't really place it. So she tells Roderick, because Roderick doesn't feel what she's feeling. Roderick doesn't have her abilities. Roderick is just hovering and hanging out with her because she's his source of protection. But he also has a connection, and that's his friend Jacob. So
is Roderick dead?
No, Roderick is alive.
He's alive
With her, yes. He also lost a good friend, but not to the death, just because that friend of his decided to go to Epstein Street alone, which you never do. So the movement that she picks up on, she knows that like she hears Samira's voice. And she doesn't end up seeing anything. All she hears is someone like saying her name, and she knows that it's Samira. And she tries to like look around and see if she can place her, but she doesn't find her. And then, a little bit more time goes by, and eventually she hears Samira saying, you guys need to go. It's not safe here. I'm not going to be able to help you anymore. You need to leave. So Lila is saying, just to like thin air now, there's got to be something we can do. There's got to be something we can help you with. Like, I can't just, we're in too deep now. Like, we can't just abandon you now. Like, there has to be a better way. And so Samira, like her voice sort of goes dull a little bit, and eventually she's like, I can't. There's nothing we can do now. You have to go. Like, you're not safe. You are in danger. So then that's when Roderick says, what if, I don't know if, we know how to do this yet, but what if we find a way to join the two of you? And I feel like that'll be the best way to like protect her. Like, what if you find a way to like communicate with her being a part of your being? And she doesn't agree. She doesn't like that idea. She doesn't like how that sounds. She was like, nah, there's got to be another way. There's got to be a better way. There needs to be something else. We can't just leave you here. We need to figure this out. Like, I feel like this is my fault. I feel like I told them how to trap you. And Samira doesn't agree with the idea either, but she basically just reiterates to them, you need to go. You need to leave, and you need to leave now. So eventually they leave. They leave Epstein Street. Lila isn't happy with how things ended up turning out. Roderick still thinks that they can do this, that they can make the whole joining thing work. But I feel like Lila now, what she wants to do is hone in on her abilities, get stronger, figure out how to use this power of hers to protect Samira.
How did her power manifest in the first place? How did she even know she was power?
So they went to Epstein Street because the street that she uses to go to school was under construction. So her and her best friend said, the only other way to get there is to take Epstein Street. And so her discovering Samira, she thought that Samira was like an actual human being alive in the flesh who also cannot walk across the street because they're doing construction. And when she tells her professor that she found a philosophy tutor, her professor then tells her, that person that you found is actually dead. Are you sure
So
we're
just
talking
her
about?
being on Epstein Street manifests her power.
That's how, well, her being on Epstein Street, all of those like dark shadows, like they know that she has that power. They can feel it. And that's how Samira was able to get off of Epstein Street, that ability that Lila has. But the dark shadows, they found out about it, and so they trapped her there. Like, they're just overpowering Lila's abilities. And now we need to figure out how to help Lila hone in on those abilities to set Samira, like, completely free.
A pair of earrings.
A pair of earrings. From where? Samira's old earrings?
Yes.
So, is she gonna go get them and put them on?
Yes.
Probably from her mom.
From her mother. Yes! And so she remembered it's called the hijab, right?
Yeah.
The hijab that she was wearing. She remembered that she had great facial structure, that she was very well spoken, that she had a very warm aura. He was like, well, what else was she wearing? Do they wear earrings?
Yeah, it could be earrings, but you can't really see if she's wearing.
Are they? I'm asking if they're allowed to, like in their culture. They are? So we'll say a necklace.
Okay.
It's alright.
Yeah, a necklace.
So she also mentioned remembering the necklace. So then Roger was like, that might be it. We might have to go back to Miss Teresa's house and ask her to see that necklace. Do you have anything that Samira held near and dear to her, that she was wearing the day that she disappeared? So they plan for the next day to go back to Miss Teresa's house. Fast forward to the next day. They go back to Miss Teresa's house. Miss Teresa looks a little bit frustrated. She's like, look, y'all, I want to help, but this is painful enough. You know, like, we still don't know where my daughter is. She's still technically not amongst the living. Like, what are you really trying to do? Like, this is, you know, over the top. So they end up having to reveal more and more information to her. And the more and more her mother listens, the more she realizes this is absolutely absurd. This is crazy. I don't think I want to help you guys. You guys sound mad. And Lila brings up something that Samira tells her that allows her mother to, like, give in and finally agree to help. And so she says to her, I think your daughter might be alive. And I think that we can help bring her back to you. I'm doing my best to get more answers for you, but I need you to help us. I need you to tell me if you remember what she was wearing the day she disappeared. So her mother finally agrees. She lets them come into the house. She looks through some of her old stuff. She looks through some of, you know, like the old pictures that they took, and she's trying to, like, jog her memory. Obviously, the more and more time that goes by, you try to keep the memory alive, but, you know, she's older. She doesn't remember everything. So she gives her Samira's old jewelry box, and, you know, she still has some of the things that Samira used to have. She tried to purge the house of everything, but not completely everything. She didn't want to forget her daughter in her entirety. So they look through the little bag of, like, clothes that she gave her. They look through the little jewelry box, and lo and behold, they come across that necklace that she was wearing the day that they first encountered Samira. So then after they find the necklace, she looks at Roderick and she's like, okay, well, what do I do with the necklace now? Like, how are we supposed to use this to help her? Like, what do we do now? And he was like, well, wear it. Just put it on. Like, it'll probably be its strongest with it on you. Like, you're the one with the power, with the ability. Just wear it. And I feel like that will bring her as close to you as we can possibly get her at this time. So they put all of her stuff away. They tell her mother thank you. You know, she tells her mom, I'm going to do my best. I'm trying my best. You know, I feel like we're close, but just bear with us. You know, we might need your help again. And so her mother reluctantly agrees. They leave. They go back to Lila's place. And they're sitting there and they're like, okay, so do I just put the necklace on? Is there something I need to say? Do you think there's something I need to do? Something special, some ritual? And Rajik's like, just put the necklace on. So of course she puts the necklace on. They still have the pictures of Janessa from her old MySpace page. They try to see if they can find some old pictures of Janessa and her together. They print those out and they're trying to, like, strengthen the energy. some time goes by and they're starting to lose hope. They're thinking maybe this wasn't the best idea. This wasn't, you know, as good of an idea as they thought. And Roderick's looking at the time. He's thinking, okay, maybe I should start to head home. And Lila starts to see the movement again. You know, that movement that she starts to see out the corner of her eye when she realizes that she's starting to pick up on the entities from Epstein Street. And she sees like a faint sort of, I don't know, what's the right thing to say? Like a fading image of Samira. Is that a right?
Silhouette.
A silhouette. So smart. So a silhouette of Samira. And she was like, wait. She stops Roderick and she was like, I think it's working. And he was like, okay, well, what do we need to do more of? Like, do we start chanting? Like, how's this gonna go? And so she was like, just hang on a second. You know, I think we just need to concentrate. I think we just need to concentrate on bringing Samira here. And so he sits down and his foot starts tapping and she stops his foot from tapping and she was like, just sit still. And eventually there's a more clearer image of Samira, but it doesn't feel like there's a connection yet. Like she can just see her. She sees that she's in like a sort of a darker room, just sort of sad, you know? And so she's like, okay, well, I can see her, but I don't think that she knows that we've been able to connect to her yet. And he's, you know, saying maybe we should just give it more time. Maybe call her name, say something to her. Or like, you know, mention Janessa. Say something like, I found out that you had a best friend. And so she starts talking to Samira. She's like, look, I'm trying to help you. I know you told us not to come back to Epstein Street, but I have your necklace on and I really need you to talk to me. And so she sees Samira like acknowledge that she's hearing something and she looks around and she's like, Lila, is that you? I thought I told you couldn't come back here. And she's like, no, I'm here in my own home. I can see you and I'm trying to figure out how we can get you off of Epstein Street. And so Samira's still like, you know, skeptical. She's still uncomfortable. She's still like, I don't think this is a good idea. I really don't want you guys to end up, you know, in the same situation I'm in. Like, I really feel like you guys should just stop this whole project. Like, just stop it here. And so, what was that?
Xbox.
Oh. Sheesh. Samira's sort of like shout whispering, you know, because she's not trying to alert any of the spirits that surrounds her. And she's like, you guys need to stop this right now. Everything needs to come to an end. Just cut it out. It's over. You know, just end this whole investigation. And Lila's not having it. She was like, I think we can help you. I think we can help you. I found out that you didn't even die on Epstein Street. And so Samira stops warning her. She stops everything. She just completely stops. And she was like, well, how do you know that? And she was like, well, I spoke to your mother. And so now Samira is even more worried. She was like, you gotta stop. Like, what if they go after my mom? Like, all of this is a horrible idea. And Lila saying it doesn't have to be a horrible idea if you just work with me. Like, we can make this work for everybody. So then Samira finally agrees and she said, okay, well, if you keep wearing my necklace, it is going to help us, but I don't know that it's going to work immediately. I feel like you just need to keep it on, and eventually it will bring me closer to you. It'll make our communication better, but I don't think it's immediately going to take me off of Epstein Street. Lila agrees, but I don't know. I'm not really sure like where to go from here. Like how should this progress?
Now they have a way that's linking them together more, which is the necklace.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't necessarily solve the problem yet.
So basically, Samira is saying to her that these dark shadows are gaining on her because her power at one point was strong enough to get Samira off of Epstein Street. Now she has to find an actual physical product that connects the two of them to communicate, which means we need to figure this out. If I'm going to work with you, Samira, then we need to figure out what we're doing soon. And we need to do it quickly. Otherwise, they're going to take over and they are in more control than you even realize now. So she said, I feel like our best bet is to just wear that necklace over the next few days, regain some of whatever it is they've tried to strip from you, And eventually that will get me off. And from that point, we'll be able to figure this out. So the next few days come and go, and Lila realizes that her family, like her mom reaches out to her, you know, how you doing? How's everything going? She has an older sister, her best friend. And she realizes, she's like, okay, I feel like I have more of a support system than I did before, but this is weird. So now Samira has finally reluctantly agreed to be a part of this plan, reluctantly. Lila's gonna wear the necklace. She's gonna wear it over the next couple of days, and she's hoping that that'll make their connection stronger, which will inevitably release her from Epstein Street. And then from that point is when they will figure out, okay, what do we do next? How do we free Jacob? How do we figure out how to shut these dark entities down forever and ever? Amen. And Samira has also revealed to them, like, she has explained to both her and Roderick, like, you guys have to understand, if I am here, if I am now suppressed back on Epstein Street, your power, your ability, Lila, is no longer as strong as it was when we once started. And that means that too many dark shadows are aware of what we're trying to do, and they're trying to beat us at our own game. We need to be ahead of the game. We need to figure out what we're doing, and we need to do it quickly. We need to do this and keep it moving. So Lila agrees, obviously, and the next few days come and go, and, you know, she's trying to, I guess, monitor the connection that she has to Samira. You know, like, she feels that she can see her a lot more clear, she can hear her a lot more clearer. And so there's this evening that she reaches out to Roderick, and she asks him to come by, and she said she feels like, you know, their connection is the strongest. And I feel like once it gets to its peak, I don't want to be here by myself to be the only one to, like, pull her from Epstein Street, like, you know, officially. So of course Roderick agrees to come by, and so she's, you know, trying to figure out what the next thing to do would be. And in the midst of her sort of just going about her evening, she feels her room like sort of like an earthquake, you know, like she feels things start to shake, she feels things shifting, she sees movement out the corner of her eyes, and she was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, something is happening. And, you know, she starts to panic, and initially she thinks, okay, it's an earthquake, but obviously because the movement is taking place out the corner of her eyes, she starts to see other, like, spirits, I guess, moving around her room. And now I guess at the end of all, like, of the shaking, like that abrupt movement, she feels different. Like, she feels this weight on the necklace. She feels this sort of, I guess, like, she's not necessarily alone, but it's not an eerie feeling, it's a familiar feeling,
A warm presence.
a warm presence. And at this point, she hears additional voices in her head. And when I say voices, I don't mean more than one voice. I mean, like, a voice that is not her own. So she's aware that these thoughts are not hers. And I guess, you know, it doesn't take her too long to realize that this voice sounds like Samira's. And she's like, oh my god, wait, is this Samira's voice? And so she says out loud, Samira? And she hears Samira responding to her in her head. And she was like, damn, did the connection get weaker? Can I not see you anymore? And so Samira finally says, no, I think we've become one. I think the necklace worked, just not in the way we expected it to work. So I'm off of Epstein Street, but I'm not visible because we're sharing the same body now. Yes?
We're sharing your body.
We're sharing your body now.
Have latched onto your conscience.
We are sharing a conscience. We're one. But the good news is we're aware of it. Like, I am not taking over, you know, you're not taking over. We are sharing.
We've merged.
We have merged. Yes.
Symbiosis.
Is that a word? For real? Oh.
She's the conduit.
She is that what we want to call her?
Well, that's what she is.
She's the conduit. Roderick finally gets there, and, you know, like, he comes up in there and he looks at the place and he looks at, like, you know, like, everything is, like, all strewn about, and he looks at her and he's like, what happened? What did I miss? And so she fills him in. He's like, oh my god, oh my Jesus. So he's like, okay, so then what do we do now? Like, how does this help us? How does this make you stronger? So then Samira, in Lila's head, says, you know, we are probably at our strongest. We are at our peak. And I feel like this helps us get like 50 steps ahead of the dark shadows. However, we still need to be sure that they're not aware because we still don't know how to use this strength. And if they figure it out before us, we're screwed. It doesn't matter how strong we are. We need to keep this on the hush hush. So the next few days go by. She goes to her philosophy class, and there was one point that, you know, the professor, what are we calling him?
Schwartz?
We're calling him Schwartz. Professor motherfucking Schwartz. This is the philosophy professor that initially revealed to Lila
So he goes back now.
Yeah.
Samira is dead. Right? So he goes by Professor Schwartz. Well, we don't know that yet. We can't reveal that yet.
Oh.
That's gonna have to be revealed later.
Interesting.
Stop playing with me. So she goes up to the professor because he didn't pull her aside, and she obviously felt like that pause and his honed in attention on that necklace was weird enough for her to go up to him and ask him questions. So she says, Professor Schwartz, you remember that one tutor that you mistook for the individual that passed away on Epstein Street? I think you said her name was, of course she knows her name, but she has to act like she doesn't remember. She wasn't just communicating with this girl. She says, Samira. Samira, was it Nazar? And he, you know, visibly shifts in his seat, and he said, yes, I do believe that's who that was. And so she was like, you know, I was trying to see if I can do a little bit more research on it because I felt like you were really sure about the fact that this person was dead, and it just seemed like I felt like there was so much about that event that took place. You know, do you know any more about it? And so he puts his pen down and he looks up at her and he says, well, what do you need to know about it? Why are you all of a sudden willing to dig into it? And she was like, well, I was just curious. And that was it. She left it at that, and she left, and she reached out to Roderick, and the first thing that he pointed out to her was he didn't answer any of your questions, which means he has answers and he's not willing to reveal them. And so she gets home, she lays out all of her stuff. She's trying to figure out why she hasn't heard Samira's voice in a couple of hours. You know, she feels like they've been communicating, and as she's laying out all of her things, her notes, she pulls out her philosophy notes, and she notices is it in red ink?
Yeah, it should be in red ink.
At the top of her notes, in red ink, she sees that's him. And she knows for a fact that she did not deliberately write that down. And so we will find out what happens next on the next episode of Epstein Street. Woo! That's it. That is how we're going to end this.
Epstein Street.